Hey there YouTube, Doc's Motorcycle Service. Rawr, 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 rawr. Welcome back to the backyard. Back to the shed. As I promised you, we're going to do a video on the shop construction. And I wanted to do this for a couple different reasons. One, although if you're a fan of the page, you know that I am usually quite thorough in everything that I do. Well, I sort of didn't follow that traditional path with the building of the shop, and it created some hiccups along the way. So in the beginning right here, I want to go over a couple of things. So if you're considering doing this yourself, maybe it will prevent you from having those hiccups. The number one thing that I would tell you to do, if you get to a point where you decide that you want a separate building, I'm not talking about something that you go down to Lowe's and buy and they bring out and drop off on your property, although some of those are quite big. I'm talking more about permanent fixtures. Now, permanent fixtures in real estate are anything that's attached to the property and will not move with the property, okay? And this shop that we're building is going to be a permanent fixture. We can't move it, okay? If I have not mentioned it before, this building is 24 foot deep and it's 40 foot long. It's basically twice and some more than what we had at the old house in the garage that was attached to the house. And when we first started planning this, I looked into everything I thought I needed to, and then I made some assumptions about some stuff. And you know what assume stands for, so I'm not going to go into that. If you don't, look it up. Look up the slang of it, okay? But bottom line is, I assumed it would be more easy to go through this entire process start to end. And because I made that assumption, we ran into some hiccups. So I just want to talk about those briefly right quick. Whether you're in the city limits of a county, well, let's just break it down. If you're in a homeowners association neighborhood, if you're in a city neighborhood, if you're in a county neighborhood, and I guess most of you are at least going to be in a county neighborhood, go to that county website and download as much information as you possibly can regarding the erecting or the construction of a building on your property. And then go to your city limits, your city office, and talk to them about what's needed for the building you want to put on your property. And if necessary, go to your homeowners association and talk to them about what's necessary to be approved for you to put on your property. Most of your homeowners associations are kind of interesting because some of them require it to be a permanent fixture, some of them do not require it to be a permanent fixture. But there's going to be setbacks. A setback is a term that means it has to be so far from the house. It can't be too close to the house. It can't be too close to your property lines. Okay? So for example, you might live on a half-acre lot and have a pretty nice house, and let's just say your backyard is 100 foot wide and 100 foot deep. Well, it may say that it needs to set off your house by at least 20 feet. It needs to be off your property lines by at least 5 feet. So that means that if your property is a square looking at it, and you want to put it in the back corner, it needs to be 5 foot off this property line and 5 foot off this property line. It might not, it might be required to be not visible from the street, which means it has to be right dead behind the house. If you're not in a subdivision, but you're in a city, you know, you may own some property, they may have some requirements. Like for example here, we're on the fringes of this city. And when we found the house and we wanted the house and we started investigating the building, I went to the city and I said, okay, this is what I would like to build. This is what I would like to erect on my acreage. And it was very simple. There was 3 things that were required. 1, it could not be taller than the house. Okay? 2, keep in mind this is detached from your residence. Okay? Like for example, if we wanted to come over here and build a brick attached garage, that would then become part of the house, so it could be beside the house. It might be even allowed to extend a little bit in front of the house. But since this shop was going to be detached, it could not be taller than the house. It could not be beside the house. It could not be in front of the house. And it had to be 100 feet off each property. That sort of shot me in the foot where I wanted it at, but it wasn't a deal breaker. So, filed the necessary paperwork to get the zoning officer to come out. We walked the property. He was really cool. And we identified the best place for the building to be erected. Fair enough, there we go. Here's where the trouble came in. Well, here's 2 parts of trouble. 1, I had no idea how expensive it would be to have electricity run to a building. Okay, we're back to that assumption. Okay, I assumed they could come out of the electrical panel on the back of the house, dig a trench out to the building, throw a couple other breakers in the breaker box, put a breaker box up inside the building, wham bam, there you go. Well, it didn't work that way. Okay, our home is not brand new, but it wasn't built in the 1800s. But the electrical panels that are on the back of the house right now, in order to accommodate the electricity that we feel like we're going to need, would have had to been completely replaced. It was going to be about $5 grand to completely replace the entire electrical system, exterior electrical box, electrical system on the outside of the home, in order to make this happen. That's a little bit more than we budgeted for. You check on yours if you go this road. The next option, and I guess there was a third option, solar was an option, but in the state that I live in, your solar has to be tied into your electrical grid. Don't ask me why. But anyway, so we went to the energy provider in the area and we said, hey, this is what we want to do. How's this going to work? And they were really cool about it, okay? But I'm going to talk about them a little bit too. Basically what we ended up doing was agreeing to have another pole, power pole, put in the property, along with a separate transformer, and they would run the power over the road from the current light pole to a transformer, and then down the pole under the ground 250 feet to the shop. Considerably less than $5,000. Okay, so that's the route we went with. But if you go that route, depending on your electrical provider, we had 7 sheets of paper that we had to fill out. The majority of it was about what we were going to be using in there, how much wattage or voltage or whatever we were going to be using in there, because apparently that's what they deem your monthly cost off of. Even though there's a meter up there, they're not going to come out and read it. They still going to charge you a monthly cost for it. So what I ended up doing was getting these people convinced. Number one, this is not a commercial shop. YouTube, it took me like 8 phone calls talking to these people to convince them this was not a commercial shop. This is a hobby shop. This is a metal or an enclosed metal building that's going to be occupied probably on Saturday mornings for less than 4 hours a day, 1 day a week. And that's what they're going to charge me power for. So here's your little tip. When you're talking to these people, don't tell them crap. Okay? Because every time you mention a word like welder, or drill press, or belt sander, or bandsaw, or whatever, in their mind they're seeing dollar signs, because that's what they're thinking you're going to be using every day and that's what they're going to charge you for. So keep your mouth shut, okay? So got the power run to it, got that figured out, and it cost us a little bit more than we had budgeted for, and we had some other things pop up between the time we got back from Sturgis and to where we are today. Today's Wednesday, probably second or third week of November, and you can see it's beautiful outside. Leaves falling in front of the camera. My point is, plan. Most energy providers will come out and just walk your property with you to give you an idea of what this is going to cost. And the building itself, it really wasn't that expensive. Honestly, it's a 24-foot deep, 40-foot long, one bay door. And there's a tip right there. Think about this for a second. A lot of people want something that looks like a shop, and they got multiple bay doors on the front of it. Well, that's cool, and I like it, and you do you. But I went with a single bay door, and here's why. All them doors across the front, yeah, they look cute, and it makes it look really nice, but guess what? You're losing a lot of storage space there. You're losing a lot of shelving space there. So we went with a 12-foot wide, 10-foot tall bay door and one walk-in door and no windows. I think Linda's not here to correct me, so I'm going to assume that I'm right. The building itself really wasn't but about $14,000. And we're going to see more of that building as we get into the next video. I think the slab, and we're going to talk about the slab too, I think the slab was about $7,000. But anyway, after we figured out where we wanted it, and I'm going to give you a little tech tip here in a minute talking about these flags. Lay it out, look at it, figure it out where you want it, look at every possible avenue to save money, and remember, buy bigger than you think you're going to need. That's all I'm going to say. Alright, because this building, as I said, is 24 by 40. Well, we're going to have a at least 2 foot deep workspace shelf on 3 walls. So now that's cut down the walking space, the usable space, by 2 foot on 3 sides. So just keep that in mind. Now, what we're going to do in this video, part 1, we're going to talk about the foundation, and we're going to look at the pictures and let you see what they did to get the concrete laid. So in this picture here, this was like afternoon 1, and it was kind of interesting because we came back from Sturgis and there was equipment parked in the field, and we were like, woohoo! And that's why I didn't get you any before pictures. Alright, they said that it would probably be the last week of August when they came out and got started, but man, they were sitting here that morning. I guess we didn't see them when we came in because it was dark, but we got woke up, and matter of fact, if you go back and look at that video, Update and Move, you can see me looking over to the left as they're doing stuff out there in the woods. So basically, they brought in everything they needed and got to work with a little ditch digger, tearing up the trees, little front end loader there, and there's the trees that they cut down. We had some options, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, but there was a chance that we would either lose 6 trees or 2 trees, and I'm going to show you how we figured out what we were going to do. The guys did really good. They knew what they were doing. They got the area cleared of trees, then they started flattening it, and then they started putting the forms in. Then they got the forms ready like on, I think this is probably the end of day 1 right here, looking at the forms in the ground and what they did. End of day 2, and things are starting to really take shape. If I haven't mentioned it before, what we decided to go with was a 24 foot deep by 40 foot long shop that has a single 3 foot wide walk-in door here and a 12 foot wide roll-up door here. Now you'll notice I didn't indicate this area
or this area here, because the roll-up door will be 3 foot in from this corner, and it'll stop about right here. But what I decided to do was to have the pad, the concrete pad in front of it, come out 8 foot from the building, go 18 feet down. I wanted to be able to roll bikes out on the pad without blocking the door on each side. That's why I went 3 foot each way. And even the contractor thought that was an excellent idea. So we got the polyethylene down now to protect the dirt. We had some pretty significant rain here last night, but it didn't affect the footers. As you can see here, the footers are these pieces down here where you have the rebar running in, and they have to go down 8 inches or so and pour in. We had these red flags here laid out as an option, and the red option went from about right here at this flag back almost to these trees right here, and then it went this way. You can see the red over here. So where these red flags are here and here, this was going to be the walk-in door area here, and up here is where the pad was going to be, this part here. But we had 2 options. Option 1 was the red flags, which would cost us 6 trees to be taken down and a little bit of fill dirt. Or option yellow, which you can see from where the door flags are here, put the door over here, sort of shifted everything this way and back some. And the yellow option only costs 2 trees and a lot of dirt. So 6 trees down and a little dirt, or 2 trees down and a lot of dirt to form up the foundation. And after talking with the contractor, he felt like option yellow was better, and I did too, and here's why. With what's left of the red flags here and here and over here and here, this tree was going to have to come down. But now, not losing that tree, walking into the middle of the roll down door and looking out, bam, I got a straight shot to the road out there. Now this tree kind of blocks that, but at this point, looking at it, and it looks better on camera, I can definitely squeeze a bike through there, and I could probably squeeze a car through there, or bring the car in on this side and put it inside. But as you can see, looking up, we're pretty good here with a lot of shade. Sun comes back up over here. We got shade up to right there, and then we turn around from there over to here. We got shade and shade on all sides. So the reason I keep talking about these trees is very simple. I hate a building that's been put out in the middle of nowhere with no trees around it, because this shop will have baseboard heating, but it's not going to have air conditioning. So the more direct sun, sorry about that, the more direct sun that I can keep off of it, the better. So I'll probably have shade on this thing until about noon, and then maybe a couple hours as it comes over here, and then partial shade right there as the sun sets, and you see it setting over there. So if I've not mentioned this before, planning. Just don't go out there and throw your building up. Make sure you're thinking about the heating, the air conditioning, and the wiring, and everything that goes with it. And as you can see, that's just about what Doc's Motorcycle Garage was when it was a garage. Man, I'm telling you, I'm so excited. So I'm going to wrap this thing up and see what tomorrow brings. Tomorrow, I think the inspector's going to be out. he has to inspect it because it's going to be wired. Once he inspects the footings, they said they're going to let the concrete set up for about a week, and then they'll come back and start erecting the building. The county inspector was just here. We're good to go. I'm going to try to do it today. Fingers crossed. Hope that works out, but if they do, I'll take a video of it and let you see how she's going to look there, YouTube. But we're moving along. Stick around, YouTube. All right, YouTube. I'm not sure how this video is going to look. Just got home. Got the slab poured this morning. I wasn't here, so I couldn't do any video about it. But got a little shower this afternoon. But everything looks good. Got our walk-in right here. Got everything set. Everything's looking good. I'm liking what they did over here. You can clearly see right here and right over there where the 12-foot door is going to be now, and how they built up a little ramp off of the apron here to make that go in. And I'm sure you're not going to be able to see this well, but this has got brushed edges on it. It's got a brushed texture on it. Whereas back here is going to be really, really smooth, but you just can't see it yet until all the concrete dust and everything gets washed off of it. I reach down here and feel it. Feels pretty smooth under there. Just got to get it cleaned up. It's drying in. You know, these things, they take about a week to dry in. Actually, there's an old wives' tale that says that poured concrete needs 21 days to cure in to 75%, but on the 22nd day, it'll be 100%. All right, next step. They took the forms off today. Remember, the forms are the wooden pieces that go around the perimeter of the pour. And you can see here, it's pretty nice here. It looks real good. So yeah, looks real good. So next step now is to come in here, get the frames up, and then the side panels and the roof, and we'll be in good shape. And I'm sort of digging well, here you go. Sort of digging how they built it up back here. You really can't see it on the camera. Well, maybe you can there. See how it sort of slopes down from here. And we'll do here what we've done in the past. We'll come back in once they're done stomping on it and tromping on it and running all over it. And we'll scrape some new dirt around, or some dirt around, and put some grass seed on it. So there you go, YouTube. We are getting there, and I'm telling you, man, it looks great. I just can't tell you how good it looks. I mean, it really does. Really happy with this. All right, stick around, YouTube.
So there you go. Foundation's in. Everything's ready to go. I want to jump back a second. What I was talking about, the county websites. If you go to a county website or you go to the city website, if you're in a small town, they ain't going to have it on their website. You just got to go get it. It's very simple. It's just a couple pieces of paper. Like I said, we got the permits through the city to do what we wanted to do. But we never went to the county. Yeah. So here's the hiccup I'm trying to save you. So in the video there, after they got the forms put in, the contractor called me and he was like, hey, we're getting ready to send the concrete trucks out. You need to have your permits somewhere out there hanging on the tree for the construction guy. Well, actually, I take that back. Keep in mind, we're in November now. This happened in August. All right, and the electrical inspector just came out and approved everything today. Okay, August, September, October, November, 90 days. Okay, to get them back out here because I screwed up. I did not go to the county, and I did not file for a building permit. And they got their nose out of joint a little bit when they figured out we had started digging. And here's another thing to be careful about. Every time the contractor said the word permit, in my mind, I heard zoning permit for the city. In his mind, he heard building permit from the county. So we were like this instead of like this. So make sure that you're communicating thoroughly with your contractor who's handling this. Because we paid money to one guy. That one guy subbed out the concrete work. His crew erected the building, and a third party is going to handle putting up the roll down door. So when they called and said, hey, we're getting ready to pour concrete, you need to hang them permits out there. And I was like, well, I don't have anything but a piece of paper. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't have a permit. He's like, you don't have a building permit. I said, I have a permit, but it's a zoning permit. He couldn't get zoning through his mind because he never built in this city before. And I couldn't understand that we needed a building permit. So after a couple of conversations, I took off to the county and said, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And boy, they got their back straight and their neck all straight when they found out that I had come out here and started digging on my property for a building without letting them know. Lord Jesus, you'd have thought I took their bubble gum from them. But anyway, we had to have an environmental done because we're in the country. We got city water, but we got a septic tank. So they had to first come out here and hang up a cease and desist order. Then they had to come out here and do an environmental to make sure I was nowhere near the leach field for the septic tank. And the leach field is where your liquid waste comes out of the tank underground and works its way away from the tank, leaching out into the ground. That sounds nasty, but it's not, because your septic tank's got bacteria in it. Look it up. I ain't going to go into all that. But anyway, had to make sure it wasn't near that. So they ceased and desist, and then they came out here, and then they did the environmental. It took them like a week and a half to come out here and do that. And couldn't have done it at the same time, okay? And then after that was done, then it took them like 2 weeks to get an inspector out here to look at the foundation to make sure that the foundation was poured correctly. And in the video there where I said the inspector had just come by, he had just come by, and we had had heavy rain the night before, and we had a little mud down in the ground where the footers go in, okay? So we had to dig that out. When you go to deal with these folks, they may require you to get what's called stamped engineered plans or engineering plans, especially if they don't have any on file. All right, and these stamped engineering plans is what the engineer at the county looks at to determine how the building will be built properly and safely. So nobody told us up front that we needed those. So after we filed the paperwork and they held it for a week and a half, then they come back and go, oh, you need these stamped engineering plans. So I had to take a day off, and I had to go to the manufacturer of the building, get 80 pages worth of plans, and then take them down there to them and drop them off. The next week they called again and said, well, these plans are for 3 different buildings. There's option A, B, and C. We don't know what option you're using. So I had to take another day off and go down there and get the plans back, take them back to the manufacturer of the building, have him circle everywhere in there, and ours was option B, that option B was circled, and then take them back to them. Then a week and a half later, they call and say, we can't find your plans. Well, at this point, I pretty much had to come apart. And I did it tactfully, because remember, these people, they got what you're doing right here in their hand. And they found those plans, and then the next day, the permit was approved for the erection of the building, or the construction to start on the building. So we got all that done, everything's done, but my point is, had I, and we'll talk about this more with an exterior light when we get into the next part of the, when we get into the electrical part of the video. Had I done the right thing by going to the county and then downloading a PDF of all their requirements for the county, then I would not have had as much stress over this as I did trying to get it done. Because in that outline, it clearly shows you everything that needs to be done, the timeline that it needs to be done in, what order it needs to be done in, and the cost for having it done. Okay, so save yourself a headache and go to your county, go to your city, go to your HOA, and before you put money down on anything, and look at, first, what can I do? Second, how much is the building going to cost? How much is the foundation going to cost? How much is the electrical going to cost? Because I think what you'll find is you'll be surprised that the dollar value, or not the dollar value, but the amount of money it costs to run electricity. But my point is the biggest thing that you're going to need with this is patience. Because it's not going to move as fast as you want it to move. Keep in mind, we started this in March of 2021. And we just got the electrical checked off this morning. Here, probably November 16th or 17th, okay? So it's taken that long to get the permits approved, get the foundation dug, get the concrete poured, get the building delivered, get the crew out here to set it up, to get it erected, to get the electrician out here, to get it inspected. Remember, the foundation had to be inspected, then the building had to be inspected, and then the electrical's got to be inspected. All right, so again, had I gone and looked at that checklist with the walkthrough on it, it would have probably made this a lot easier, and it would probably have got me in the right mindset to be a little more patient with this process. So anyway, this wraps up part 1, foundation. The next video, which I hope to have up in a week or so, is going to be the actual construction of the building. So if there's not a little pop-up here right now, that's because the building, that video has not been put up. I'm still working on it. But once it's up, there'll be a little link right here for you. For you subscribers, you'll see it come out. But again, I'm just telling you, man, plan this thing before you ever drop $1 or put a dollar in anybody's hand. Make sure you fully understand the cost of it. Because we thought we were going to have a building for $20,000. All right, well, that $20,000 building has now turned into a $20,000 building plus $2,300 to run electrical to it, plus probably another $2 or $3 or $4 grand for all the electrical work that's going to be done on it. So just because you have a budget of $25,000 or $20,000 or $10,000 or $5,000, just don't think building. Think building completed. Foundation, building, electrical, tools, everything that's going to go into it. YouTube, I appreciate you coming by the backyard. As always, ride safe, handle your business, save some money. And